Oh, so you want to be a barbarian. You want to think about anything? You want to hit things hard and not die? We've got the class for you guys, Barbarians. Let's talk about them.
Alrighty, welcome all my homies to our latest installment of TACtorials. I'm Luke the DM, and I am joined here by our lore master Jay Milia. And today we are going to talk about the Barbarian class in Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition here. We're super excited to launch these series of videos, and these are meant to act as a sort of a brand new player's beginner guide for each class. Now, I do want to start this video by prefacing and saying that this is not a substitution for you as a player doing your homework, reading through that uh, player's handbook and getting all the information you need. The goal here is that we are going to just briefly summarize the mechanical and sort of thematic themes of the Barbarian and explain why you should play one if you're so inclined. So with that getting started, let's dive right into it. Um, Barbarians, you can probably picture these guys as the big, muscly sort of meatheads charging into the battle, hacking and slashing and, cutting their way through, using their brute strength and sort of violence to solve all problems. And Dungeons and Dragons does a decent job of bringing that to life. Barbarians definitely fulfill that role of absolutely getting into the fray, dishing out damage, absorbing damage, and they're very good at it. So that being said, let's go ahead and dive right into some of the mechanics here. So starting off with hit dice, barbarians have a D12 hit dice, and they are actually the only class in 5th edition that have a D12 as their hit dice. What this means is that when you pick a barbarian, you are automatically going to have more hit points than anybody else in your party. They have a whole lot of hit points to burn through. Um, as far as armor proficiencies, they are proficient in light armor, medium armor, and shields. But I like to put a little bit of an asterisk next to this one because, as we'll talk about a little bit later, barbarians actually don't need armor all that often. As far as weapon proficiencies, they are proficient with just about anything, including improvised weapons. You can pick up a chair and smash somebody. You can throw a goblin at another goblin, or you can go with a nice two-handed greatsword. Pretty much whatever floats your boats there. We've got no tool proficiencies because barbarians are pretty simple folk. Um, their saving throw proficiencies are in strength and constitution. And what this sort of alludes to is that barbarians, you're going to be focused primarily on your physical attributes over your mental ones. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. As far as skill proficiencies go, you have your list here that you can pick from. I highly, highly always encourage my barbarians to take athletics. Again, strength being sort of your forte here, and athletics leaning into that. Um, Let's talk about some specific class features here, and I am going to go ahead and pass over to Jay Milio.
All right, so when you're talking about barbarians, the most quintessential part of their class is the rage feature. So, when in battle, you use your bonus action to enter a rage. And when you do so, you gain a bunch of different benefits. It is important to note that if for some reason you do have proficiency in heavy armor, you cannot rage while wearing heavy armor. So that's important in case you're multi-classing or anything like that. While you're in rage, you have advantage on strength checks and strength saving throws. And when you make a melee weapon attack using strength, so it cannot be a dex-based weapon or anything like that, you gain a +2 to the damage roll. This will increase as your level increases, but it starts off with a +2. Also, you are the damage soaker of the party. You're going to have resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage while you are in your rage. You will not be able to, if you're multi-classed, cast any spells, and you cannot concentrate on spells while raging. So you can't cast a spell, concentrate, and go into a rage. It'll immediately drop when you go into a rage. Your rage lasts for 1 minute, or which is 10 rounds of combat. It ends early if you are knocked unconscious, or if your turn ends and you have not attacked a hostile creature since your last turn or taken damage. You can also prematurely end your rage as a bonus action on your turn. Once you have, so you have a certain number of rages, depending on your level. Those will refresh at a long rest. So you're going to be primarily a long rest class if you are a barbarian. You can rage twice at level 2, and then it goes up to 3 at third, and further on you get more rages as you go. So as Luke the DM had mentioned, an armored defense is another trait that you get. Basically, it is specific to Barbarian that if you're not wearing any armor, your armor class will equal 10 plus your Dex modifier and your Constitution modifier. You can still use a shield and get the unarmored defense. So the shield would kind of boost you up a little bit extra there. But if you've got good Dex and Con, your unarmored defense is probably going to be better off for you than wearing any armor. All right, and then at level 2, you get a couple additional features here. So danger sense. Danger sense is really cool because if you can see something happening and it's a dex saving throw, you have an advantage on the dex saving throws. You cannot be blinded, deafened, or incapacitated, but it'll work for both spells, traps, potentially any nature events like an earthquake that might knock you over, something like that, up to your DM's discretion. And then also at level 2, you gain the ability to recklessly attack. Another key barbarian class feature here. So basically, when you recklessly attack, it is, as it says, you're basically throwing aside all concern for your defense, and you're basically just desperately trying to kill something in front of you. When you make the first attack on your turn, you can declare that you're attacking recklessly, and if you do so, you gain advantage on all of your attack rolls, melee attack rolls. But the key part of that is anybody that attacks you within that before the start of your next turn will also have advantage. So it's a little bit of a pro con, and you have to kind of weigh the odds here. But I'll kick it back over to Luke for our level 3.
Sure thing. Thank you, Jay Emilio. At level 3, barbarians are going to be able to choose their subclasses. In this case, these are called their primal path, and this sort of represents your specialty. Um, there are a lot of really, really awesome subclasses for Barbarian, um, and we can go over some of them really quickly here. Um, the most popular and well-known one is probably Path of the Totem Warrior, which sort of ties into animalistic traits and spirits. You can be like a totem of the bear and get extra damage resistances. You can be a totem of the wolf and get pack tactics and more advantage on your attacks, things like that. Path of the Berserker is probably the simplest of the barbarian subclasses and sort of the classic there. You can enter sort of an advanced rage, a frenzied rage, and get extra attacks on your turns. Um, Path of the Beast is actually Jamilio's choice here in TAC. Lets you actually focus on transforming into different bestial parts, growing fangs, teeth, claws, tails, things like that. Um, Path of the Zealot ties more into a religious sort of background, getting some extra like radiant necrotic damage, more tied into the gods. Sort of the so angry you can't die, Deus Vult sort of thing. Storm Herald is going to give you some elemental effects and let you manipulate your environment a little bit based on sort of like these lightning and ocean and desert sort of vibes. Wild magic is really fun if you love a little bit of chaos. Sort of gets into a little bit of like a Feywild sort of fairy type flavor there. Um, and Ancestral Guardian is actually a really, really cool defensive one, focusing primarily on tapping into sort of those spirit guides of your history and protecting your ancestry, protecting your allies, things like that. All very, very cool. Um, I will say that depending on your subclass, the flavor of barbarians, I think barbarians kind of get an interesting rap of just being sort of the himbo, big meathead dummy kind of walking in there and not really having much to go off for role playing. And those characters are famous for a reason. They're a lot of fun. But I have seen some barbarians kind of tie in their subclass in some other really, really interesting ways. Rage doesn't have to be this sort of angry, mindless killing machine. I've seen examples of rage kind of being reflavored in different subclasses as like a samurai who gets into this like battle zen that they hone in allowing them to like do extra damage and resist damage. I've seen a Warforged Barbarian actually describe it as like kind of kicking their machinery into overdrive. And so as you can really flavor this sort of class really interestingly with a lot of different options there, and your subclass definitely ties into that flavor and can give you inspiration there. So definitely have fun with that. Don't feel limited just by the sort of killing machine meathead sort of stereotypes there. Um, at level 4, you get to choose an ability score improvement or a feat. And so this is really, really important. Level 4 is definitely sort of a milestone level. And so we want to spend a little bit of time talking about both ability scores and feats. Um, so, Jamilio, what would you say are the most important ability scores for a barbarian? If you were making a brand new barbarian, where would you allot those stat points in sort of what priority?
I would do strength as number one, constitution as number two, and then dexterity is number three, and then you can kind of fill in the rest based on what your character idea is.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, barbarians are very much focused on the physical attribute scores, your strength, your constitution, and your dexterity. As we kind of saw in some of the other class features there, your strength is going to determine how hard you hit, how likely you are to hit with your melee weapons that you're using when you're raging and you're attacking recklessly. Your constitution is going to give you more health, so you can soak up more damage for your friends, and your dexterity also ties into your armor class. So definitely focusing on those physical which unfortunately means that your mental attributes are going to be your dump stats, which isn't always a bad thing. Um, Also, kind of ties into why barbarians sometimes get that stereotypical reputation of being the dummies of the party, but it's because they're more focused on the physical aspects here. Um, I will say barbarians are what I like to call a mad class or a multi-attribute dependent class, meaning that you will sometimes feel a little bit divided between those three physical attributes. But at the end of the day, if you're focusing on one, I'd say strength is probably number one, but having a high score in any of those three is never going to be a bad thing. Um, Jamelia, do you want to talk about some feat options for barbarians?
Sure. So if you don't want to go with your stat attribute, bumping those up, you have the ability to choose a feat at this level. So some really great feats for a barbarian are um, the tough feat, which gives you extra HP. We've got Savage Attacker, which is going to allow you to. That's the reroll one, right, Luke?
Savage Attacker is going to let you re-roll some damage dice. So when you do hit, you swing that bell curve in your favor. Your average damage per turn is only going to increase with Savage Attacker.
Yep. And then depending on the type of weapon you use, we've also got your piercer, your slasher feats, which would give you a little bit of more of a boost and potentially some more re-roll opportunities for your damage to kind of increase your damage numbers on that bell curve. And then Mage Slayer is a fun one too. Mage Slayer allows you to use your reaction if you're in melee distance with a mage to anytime that they attack with a spell, you're able to kind of use your reaction to smack them back. So it's another good way to kind of keep your party safe by being able to really dish out that extra damage.
Absolutely. And we would be remiss if we did not mention probably debatably the strongest barbarian feat. Great Weapon Master is
Mm.
just an absolute game changer here. Synergizes really, really well with barbarians because you're able to um, sort of diminish the side effects of the -5 to attack rolls with your reckless attacks. So again, giving yourself advantage to offset the -5 to attack rolls and getting that extra 10 damage boost on all of your attacks and extra attacks with your bonus action when you manage to drop something to 0 hit points, just turns you into an absolute unstoppable force. It's definitely one to consider if you're looking for a feat for barbarians. Um, so, Jamilio, you actually play one of the most beloved barbarians in the Tealeaf Adventuring Company with Callie. And so, can you give us some insider tips, tricks, mindsets, things that you keep in your mind when you're playing Callie.
Yeah, definitely. So, as the barbarian, as we've kind of tried to hammer home here, you are not only dishing out a ton of damage, but you're also the damage soaker of the party. You're taking extra hits so that way your squishier classes like your wizards, your rogues, any of those classes are taking less damage because you're taking the brunt of it for them, and you're also getting some of that reduced back. So with reckless attack is really important to have kind of a strategy going in. If you're facing a large amount of enemies that are melee attackers, you probably don't want to recklessly attack because they can then recklessly attack back, or they can have advantage back at you, and that's a lot of hits to potentially have to take. However, if you're on a single target, or if, say, a target is very close to dropping and you need to get that target down, recklessly attack, and you can, increase your odds of striking a hit and knocking an enemy down. Um, those are kind of the big things with your positioning, trying to protect other party members, but also maximizing your output for damage is really where you want to focus in.
Very cool, very cool. And one last question, especially for some of our new players. Um, Sorry to put you on the spot a little bit here. We didn't talk about this one ahead of time, but when you're looking for magic items for a barbarian, what sort of items are you specifically keeping your eye on? What catches your attention?
So with Callie, the big one, like off the bat, was finding a really good weapon for her that has additional benefits and attacks. So she has this awesome pike that basically it has reach, so I can hit things at, instead of a 5 foot distance, I can hit things at a 10 foot distance, which gives me extra ability to be able to stop people, from kind of going around me, and don't have to position myself quite as precisely. But it also gives me extra damage output with poison damage in this particular case. um, Anything that kind of boosts your main attributes, like there's always like a kind of standard one is the your belt of hill giant strength, or things like that that boost your strength. Anything that boosts your con gives you more damage resistance. Anything that kind of really fits nichely into your class and kind of builds your class characteristics is great. I also, do not discourage anybody if you want to do something wonky with your barbarian and get stuff that is more flavorful or not in your core stats. Don't, if you can make that work and you can role play as it, go for it, man.
Absolutely, yeah. The occasional little bit of magic, like once per day spell items, and that barbarians not being a spellcasting class, sometimes that can be fun to just have that little ace up your sleeve. So those are definitely some of the things you want to keep your eye out for, especially since most barbarians aren't going to be wearing armor. So that sometimes can feel like you know your options are limited as far as magic items. But thank you very much for all that insight. Um, that was our quick little summary of playing a barbarian, folks. If you are interested in playing a barbarian, definitely tune into the Tealeaf Adventuring Company Thursday nights on Twitch. Keep an eye out for these highlighted key barbarian characters, Callie, Onka, and Geld as your primary examples there. And we hope to see you there. Until next time, toodles.
See ya.